The Siege of Blood and Faith. The Crusades were a series of wars between Christian and Muslim armies, fighting for control of the Holy Land. Thousands of knights and soldiers traveled from Europe to capture Jerusalem, believing they were fighting for God. But these battles were brutal, filled with blood, pain, and death. This is the story of one of those battles, a fight for a city, where neither side would back down. The sun was setting, painting the sky red like fire. The air smelled of smoke and death. The Crusader army stood outside the city walls, their swords and armor covered in dirt and dried blood. The city they had traveled so far to conquer was right in front of them. All that stood in the way were the defenders on the walls. Trumpets echoed across the battlefield. The Crusaders tightened their grip on their weapons, hearts pounding. At the front of the army, Sir Renaud of Lyon raised his sword high. His face was covered in sweat and dirt, but his eyes burned with determination. "Today, we take the city or we die trying," Renaud shouted. "For God and glory." The Crusaders roared and charged toward the walls, like a wave crashing onto the shore. Arrows rained down from the defenders, piercing armor and flesh. Men screamed and fell, but the others kept running, ladders slamming against the stone walls. The defenders poured boiling oil over the soldiers climbing the ladders, burning them alive. But the Crusaders didn't stop. They climbed higher, swords in hand, ready to fight the moment they reached the top. Renaud was the first to climb over the wall. He leapt down and swung his sword, cutting down the nearest defender. More Crusaders followed, jumping onto the wall and fighting in a brutal, bloody battle. Swords clashed, shields shattered, and bodies fell like broken dolls. Down below, a massive battering ram smashed against the city gates. Defenders dropped rocks and fire onto the soldiers pushing the ram, but they didn't stop. The gate finally cracked and burst open, and the Crusaders flooded into the city streets. The city became a battlefield. Knights on horses charged through the narrow streets, trampling enemies and stabbing them with lances. Men fought in alleyways, swords slicing through flesh, blood spilling onto the stone streets. Renaud fought through the chaos, his sword dripping with blood. His breath was heavy and his muscles ached, but he didn't stop. In the main square, he faced a group of Saracen warriors. They attacked without mercy, swords flashing. Renaud blocked and countered, cutting down one enemy after another. An arrow pierced his shoulder, but he ripped it out and kept fighting, the pain drowned out by adrenaline. The Crusaders pushed through the streets, forcing the defenders back to the city's Grand Mosque, their last place to stand. The final battle was brutal. Swords slashed, men screamed, and bodies piled up. Blood flowed like rivers through the streets. Finally, the defenders fell. The Crusaders raised their banners, shouting in victory. Renaud dropped to his knees, exhausted, his armor soaked in blood. He looked around at the ruined city, smoke rising into the dark sky. The city was theirs, but the cost had been terrible. The Crusaders cheered, their voices echoing through the streets. The battle was over, but the memories of blood and death would stay with them forever. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, like, and comment.